Okay guys, it's the solo guitar kit, parlor guitar kit build part 1. We did the review on everything and we're just getting into the meat and potatoes of things here now. So I started off with the neck because I figured while the neck was off, I may as well treat the frets a little bit. There's a couple little spots here where I'm going to try and clean up the inlays so that they're a little crisper. They're just... and I'm thinking just simply a little CA glue, some sawdust, and then like I'll drop CA glue and I'll just take some fine sandpaper and rub some fine dust into there, and then I'll scrape all these fret slots back. The sides of the ends of the frets were sharp, and I've already dressed the ends of the frets a little bit so that they're not gonna, like, literally they were just about sharp enough to cut fingers. So we dressed those out a little bit. And then the next biggest thing, I want to clean up this here. You can see there's a scallop here from whatever, just some, looks like some sanding marks. So I want to clean that up and level that a little bit. And then mating the dovetail and getting everything to sit in is the next big thing. Once I've got that, then I can check my scale and locate my bridge position. Make sure that it's masked enough, and then we can pour fill and get that process going. So we'll keep you coming in with us here as we go along. So we're doing up these frets here, and so all I've done is I sanded a wee little bit, and I've dropped a little bit of CA glue, super glue, and then I resanded over top of that. And now all I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a little scraper, and I'm just going to scrape that clean. And then we're just gonna give them a wipe up here a little wee bit, and then you can see, you know, we've just touched them up a little wee bit. Maybe you can see like this one here, you know, you're always going to be able to maybe notice that it's not showing up the best in this camera, but it did clean up a little bit of the gaps there, and I don't want to go into any time right now on this fretboard, like oiling it or anything like that, because I'm going to be touching it and working it and taking it on and off, so I'll save that for the end. Now, the next biggest challenge here is mating this neck to this body. And there's something going on in the channel here that's holding it back from dropping right in. So I just gotta make a little bit of room here. Okay, so we're trying to drop this down in. Okay. Now you see that's as far as it goes. Now I'm trying to determine where the holdup is here. I'm feeling like it's just tight all the way. I'm gonna see here if I can just see any spots. I don't just see any spots right off the bat that should be holding it up that much. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to check a couple measurements with my caliper here. I want to just make sure that they mortise this out to an appropriate size, number one. So that should be a 9mm opening and it is just tight at 9 mils, but there is a tight spot in there at 9 mils. Okay, and then we narrow down at that point, and that's where it's hanging up right there, because that's too narrow. Yeah, I need 6 mils, and I've only got 5 and a bit. So I have to, so you can visualize this. So what I'm talking about here is the this gap up here. They've narrowed that throat, and that's too narrow. So I think that I'm going to wind up taking it off of that side a little bit, just because visually that kind of makes sense to me. So I'm going to very, very gently do that with a chisel. Somebody asked me a while ago about why I used a chisel, and I'll tell you, I can work so fine with a sharp chisel, and a chisel leaves a very nice finished edge. You know, that's something you can't get with a you know, like sandpaper. Like I can get a mirror edge, almost a shiny edge on wood with a sharp chisel, and you cannot do that with sandpaper. You cannot do that with rasps and files. That is something that a chisel does. So what we're doing here, folks, is we're just finagling the fit on this neck to the guitar. So I'm going with my chisel, and I'm, you know, taking little minuscule shavings off at a time. It turns out in the end that there was a couple little things that were compounding the problem with the neck fit here. So the mortise pocket for the truss rod wasn't deep enough. It basically needed to be the same depth all the way through. And if I would have taken a little bit more time right off the bat and measured appropriately, I would have seen that instantly. There was a couple little things in the end. The binding was raised a touch at the neck pocket to the body. There was a little tag of binding that was sticking out. The actual dovetail joint itself fit really nicely, and overall we got a pretty decent fit with just a little bit of finagling. Okay, gang, so we got her in there. This is not glued, this is just sitting in there, but the neck is in play. It's in the right place. It's square to the body, and I really didn't have to do anything to that. The fit at the heel is good. It's not excellent, but it's quite good. Just, you know, straight out of the box, okay? The whole problem with the neck going in was the pocket in the hole was not deep enough. So what we're trying to figure out here is we're trying to determine if our neck angle is correct before we glue this neck into the bridge. So we're going to get a straight edge here. We're going to put it on the neck, and with any amount of luck it's going to line up basically with the top of the bridge. So I got my trusty straight edge here, and I bring it in, and sure enough it lines up appropriately, which is great. That means I don't have to adjust the angle of the neck, and that's a really nice feature. So that's a real big plus for this kit. If I need to do any adjusting, I've got lots of bridge height and thickness. If I need to plane the bridge down a little bit so that I can get a nice action, I've got lots of meat there to do that. So the next step is going to be to glue the neck in, and that's what we're going to do next. Okay guys, we're back and we're about ready to glue this neck in. So there's couple things you'll notice. I got a little bit of tape on here, part of what I'm doing is I'm holding my caul in place, which is a pretty beefy caul, but that's all I got right now. It's cork backed. On the neck, I got another one held in place up here on the tongue extension. I taped off a little bit just to help me with cleanup, because it's bare wood. I don't want a pile of glue seeping in everywhere. The one thing that I did notice that I hadn't noticed right off the bat, the bindings here where they come, where the neck joint is, they weren't flush with the body. They were proud a little bit. And so I scraped those back a touch to make them flush. So just another little spot that you want to make sure everything is perfect. Now I'm going to use hot hide glue here, simply because I've got some prepared from another project and I don't want it to go to waste. It does go bad after, a couple of weeks or the use, and you just always have too much. I always make too much. So I'm going to use hot hide glue. You can just as easily use whatever other type of glue you might want to use. I would avoid like Titebond 2, stuff like that. Just you want a glue that's not going to creep, so that when you slide it together, it's not going to shift on you or whatnot. Good tack glue. Hide glue bonds to itself, and so hide glue is actually going to draw this together. It's going to like suck itself together. That's just a property of the hide glue. So I've done a dry run. I know how everything's got to go. I've got my clamps ready. They're backed off. They're in the approximate right spot. I've got another caul here for the tongue extension and a clamp that I'm going to get on from the inside that's ready to go. On the inside there's a big wide block in there, and I'm going to use that. I've got a soft rubber pad on the bottom of this clamp so it's not going to mar anything. My glue's hot, it's ready to go. With hot hide glue you apply to both surfaces. Okay, if you are using hide glue, don't use the bottled hide glue. It might work fine for a joint like this where most of the stress is in the dovetail part, not, you're just kind of holding things. But the cold hide glue stuff has a shelf life. And I don't know, it's just not my favorite, that's for sure. So once I get going with this, you got to move quickly with hide glue, and especially the specific gram strength hide glue that I'm using is strong. So it sets up faster. The stronger the hide glue, the faster the cure time. So I've literally, once I start gluing, I've got seconds to get this joint together. I don't have minutes. I've got maybe, up to a minute by the time I start gluing, before that glue is going to start to gel and set up, and then I'm in trouble. I've got a rag here for cleanup. The beautiful thing about hot hide glue, it cleans up with some hot water really nicely, and because everything is going to be exposed just the way that you go, you only clamp this with one clamp into a dovetail and then one on the tongue extension, so I have good access to everything to clean up. So without further ado, my glue is hot. I use baby food jars, and you want that glue to run off your brush somewhere between 145 and 165. You want to keep that constant. You don't want that fluctuating. If your shop is cold, you're going to want to warm it up a little bit. My shop isn't cold. It's not super warm. I'd like to have a lamp here with an incandescent bulb that I can utilize to keep things warm. So you want to be careful here that you're not getting messy, too messy, okay? So here we go. So we're dabbing glue onto both surfaces, and we're making sure that we get a good coverage on the dovetail joint. That's where most of the stress is going to be. Now you're going to notice, for those of you that have been building and whatnot, I did not put any glue on the tongue extension. At the time, I'll be honest, it was a complete oversight on my part. I just blanked. I was trying to move so quickly with the hide glue that I forgot to put it on the tongue extension. This probably actually worked out well in a way that what I did is I just took a palette knife with a little bit of glue on it and got it under the tongue extension and in there. If I had put the high glue on the tongue extension, I did run a risk of getting, gobby in and around that truss rod cover. So in the end, I'm on the fence. This might have worked out okay as far as it goes to get that tongue extension glued down with minimal squeeze out and, going into that cavity there around the truss rod. So everything came out pretty decent. The neck glued in, straight and true. And so I'm pretty happy with it for really my first time gluing in a brand new neck on this kit. It's not generally much of a problem. So anyway, there we are. Our neck is glued on. We're going to leave that overnight, take the clamps off, and then we can determine our scale length and our bridge position, locate our bridge, make sure that we're masked off wide enough for our bridge. We're going to pour fill. Not so much worried about the top. We're going to seal the top and pour fill the sides and the back, because the top is just beautiful. And then start working on the finish work. So, sanding sealer and all that fun stuff, and make sure that everything is scraped up to our liking here. These corners are sharp, super sharp, which is beautiful, but I'm gonna take that sharp edge off. I don't like that. It actually bothers my arm when I'm playing. So, but anyway, that's part one. We'll go on to part two in the coming days. Ciao.